Welcome back to Torch Talk, your flashlight enthusiast podcast on YouTube. Figure that out. This is Torch Talk number 3, and in this week's episode, we'll be taking a look at the Weltool T12, the TKLamp integrating sphere, and talking to the one and only Charles Wiggins, who is going to show us new drivers he's been cooking up. My name is Sean, but I couldn't do it without my co-host from Connecticut, Artie Trudell.
Hey guys, Artie Trudell here. Glad to be here.
So let's start off right away with what's going on in flashlight news. We've been talking about mostly the W35 from AceBeam, which I've got a copy of. Let me grab it. There's the W35. This thing is kind of like the new hot thrower right now, right?
That thing is beautiful, absolutely. Kind of does it all.
Yeah, it's an LEP that actually solves the problems of LEPs because it's got a little diffusion. It's got a liquid crystal diffuser inside it. So there's a little element in there. You click it on and you hit this button and it kind of, you can see, let's see here. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to see, but it works great outside. It works phenomenally outside. And the best thing about it really is the fact that you can go multiple steps between full flood and full throw. So you can kind of knock it down a couple steps and it kind of almost get a hot spot with spill on an LEP. I mean, it's not exactly the same as you'd get with an LED emitter, but for an LEP, it's really solving a lot of problems I had about, why they were unusable.
Right, and I think it was a good idea that they did it in steps like that because I think you mentioned this before. You could just put a diffuser on an LEP and that kind of makes it a floodlight, but it's all or nothing. So to have different steps that kind of faded in and out, I think that's a great idea.
Next up, new in flashlight news is the M2 and M1 from AceBeam. So the M1 I reviewed, and you can see a link in the description below for a review about the M1. And here, I'll put it on screen. There we go. There's my M1. The M1's amazing. It's really great. You got a triple Nietzsche emitter on this side. You got to get the Nietzsche model if you want that. But on this side, you got an LEP. It's zoomable LEP. It's got a great interface. It's all on one side here. Now, the M2, let me go to the website here. The M2 is a scaled down version of the M1. It's even tinier. So you can see here in this proc shot, that's very, very tiny. And instead of using an LEP and LED, it's now using a round LED die for the spotlight. It's still very good spot. So if you wanted something that's really pocket friendly, this is the one to get, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. In photos, it looked like a 14500 light. I was surprised to hear that it has an 18650, right?
Yeah, 18650. Yep.
And then it has our RGB auxiliary LEDs, which is really, really nice. That they're trying to capture a different part of like the enthusiast realm by offering something like that. I don't think AceBeam's ever offered anything like that before in any of their lights.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the M1 that I'm holding here really is the combo light I always wanted, the combo light of flood and throw. But then this one is more of an EDC solution. And even though it is like a combo kind of flood and throw, it doesn't feel like that in use. It feels, to me at least, from the friends that have it, it's more like a solution to an EDC light so that you can get throw and flood. I mean, how am I going to try to say this? This is confusing. But what I'm trying to say is, this one feels like two lights stuck together. That one feels like a technological feat to get you everything you need in your pocket.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It makes sense how you're describing it, where it's more of a integrated light, where their main focus was not just flood and throw. It was to have a best of both worlds EDC light. Make it smaller, make it so it doesn't have an LEP, because, I mean, that's kind of a limited use, even with the focus ability. I think LEDs maybe just more useful in more certain circumstances.
Now, later in the show, we're also going to talk about the new Quantum Chimera that Charles Wiggins has just announced on Facebook. This is kind of similar to the Quantum Dragon driver in that it's a LuxRC style, all-in-one emitter, driver, MCPCB all-in-one. So basically what you're doing is you're able to reduce the size of the flashlight because you don't have all that wasted space by having the MCPCB space and wires and then a driver board. So I'm interested to hear from him and see what he's got.
Yeah, me too. I was really impressed to see that he developed the Quantum Dragon, kind of in that vein of Lux RC. And then, as we know, even in some, not that I'm comparing it, but in production lights, like Zebra Light kind of does that. And it's really an effective way to make a smaller flashlight. But it's exciting to see it in a smaller format for AAA or whatever he's planning for that new driver.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to have him later at the end of the show. But now I wanted to segue into our next segment, which is Flashlights 101. And today we're going to be talking about storing batteries. When I say storing batteries, I mean both ways. I mean, like, do we store them in our flashlights? Do we not? Like, how do we handle their degradation of chemistry? Artie, when you store your flashlights, do you store them with the batteries in the flashlights?
I do. I feel like you're testing my my proper protocol of how to
No, not at all. I do the same. I mean, I got this this thing behind me, and I got all those flashlights, and they're all filled with batteries. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my go route. All my flashlights have batteries in them. I try to rotate through my collection, carrying, using on like at least a weekly basis. So I do check them all. And I'll say
right. Yeah, you check them. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But go ahead.
Yeah. So my go-to, I'll keep fully charged. I don't know if you want me to jump into it or not, but the majority of lights that I don't use that often, I will keep at like a I don't know, how would you say it, like a charge rate.
Yeah. So let me launch into it. So first off, let's talk about the physicality of storing batteries. So I've got a flashlight here. It's a Thor 1. Oops, I'm unscrewing from the head. LOL. Okay, so let's get the tail cap off like I intended. So there is a battery in here right now. Now, the thing about this is, in this flashlight, there is a spring at the head here. There's a spring at the tail. And so a lot of people, come to the misassumption, the misconclusion, that because of those springs, if you store it with the battery inside the light, you're doing damage to the springs. But people in the know have told me that that is not a problem, and the springs being compressed does not make them lose tension. In fact, there was this anecdote about some guys that were in the military, and they were going through some storage, and they found old crates of magazines that had been stored for Thompson guns, Tommy guns, back in World War II. Right? Did you hear the story?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So this is a good one. So these guys, this is like in the 90s. They get these, these magazines out that have been stored for 50 years, and they were off the books. I mean, nobody's using Tommy guns anymore, and so they had disposed of them. And so they thought, hey, let's go have fun, go to the firing range, and just shoot them off, because we got to get rid of them anyways. So they went out there and shot them all, and they said they shot thousands of magazines, not one jam, and these things were under pressure for 50 years. So basically, I guess the physics of it is what decreases a spring's strength is flexing in and out over and over, but one flex and then holding it there is just counts as one. So it doesn't matter how long it's in that position, apparently.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's honestly something I never considered about storing my lights with batteries in them, was the spring tension and how it affected it.
Well, when I hear people talk about their reticence to store a flashlight with a battery in it, usually that's the number one thing, is they're worried about the springs. So I'll just go ahead and say that it's not a problem. Then the second thing, I think, is they're worried about the longevity of the chemistry in the cell itself. But that's when I'm going to say that, lithium ion, you want to store them at about 3.7 to 3.8 volts, right in the middle there. If it's too low or it's too high, that does damage to the cell over time. So storing it at 4.2 volts, keeping it fully charged for months, actually degrades the chemistry, and your capacity will shrink on that battery. You'll not get as much drain out of it, and you won't get as much runtime. So what I do, if you look at these, the shelf here that I'm looking at right there, all of those are about between 3.7 and 3.8. That's what I do. I just store them there. And that's about half charged, and that's a sweet spot for them. Some of these batteries are like 5 years old, and if I charge them up to 4.2, I'll do a battery test, and they still have the same capacity as like when I bought them. And it's because I'm storing them at that sweet spot, right? 3.7 to 3.8 volts. And you do not need a fancy discharger to do this. You can literally just turn the light on, use it for a while, and then just get a multimeter and test the battery. And if you get anywhere near 3.7, 3.8, you're good. I mean, you don't have to nail it.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Like, and the other thought on that is like I'll circulate my lights a lot, and unless I'm EDCing it for days on end, if it has 3.8 volts, it's usually fine. So if you were just to grab one of, like in your example, grab one of those lights off that shelf and want to carry it for a day, I don't think 3.8 volts is making or breaking anything. You know what I mean? Unless you're a security guard and you're using that thing all night, you could still use it and be fine. And then, okay, I'm going to carry it tomorrow. I'll charge it up.
All right, so now let's turn to our modders corner. This week we're going to talk about the TKLamp flashlight tester. So if you're like a serious modder or just a serious enthusiast, you really want to know exactly how many lumens you're putting out. It's really difficult, probably impossible to do with just a lux meter, because you have to capture all the lumens that are coming out of the light. And so there's two ways to do it. And let me switch to a little camera here. One way is that guy down there. That is the venerable Texas Lumen Tube. I bought this a couple years ago, and that's been awesome. But I just upgraded to this guy. This is called the TKLamp integrating sphere. They don't say that. That's what I'm saying. That's what it is. It's integrating sphere. And what's so cool about it, there we go. So, it's neat. It's got an integrating sphere built into this portable case. It's got a AC power plug right here, and it comes with it, and you can just plug it in for AC power. But it also has this little guy right here. This runs off two 18650s. So if I tilt up a little bit here, I'll turn this on. You see that? It loads up. Yeah, it's neat. And so what happens, you just grab a flashlight like this this Hoku from Dawson Machine. What's he now? Dawson Machine?
Yeah. Dawson Machine Works. Maybe?
Yeah, Machine Works. I think that's it. Because we both want to say La Lima. It's been a while, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, but if you look, I got it on 3 modes right now, so I'll stick it in here. I got it on low for 11 lumens, tap, 150 lumens, tap again. There's your 550 lumens. It kind of comes out at start. And one of the things that's really cool about it, too, before I flip down there, you can see they got lumens on the top, and you can see down here we've got candela. And so over here, I can pull this back, and there's a cable here, and there's a little sensor. And so I can put that sensor at a meter away from the light, and it'll read candela in real time right there at the bottom by shooting at the sensor. You can take this insert out. It unscrews like that, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's for a bigger light. And then there is also this, so you can get really big light in there.
Yeah, because you need to have it different sizes for different size lights.
Yeah, so there you can see, and there's, it goes like that. Let me go to their website. The deal with them is they make this product for an automotive light tester, and what happened was another channel saw this and thought, hey, this might be good for testing flashlights. I wish it was me. I didn't even know they existed, but another channel figured it out. And so they talked to these guys, and they sent them one of their testers for headlights. And they kind of just like took it apart and tried to use it as a beta test for a flashlight. And it worked so well that they actually made flashlight designed ones in a small run. Like they bought like 20 of them. A couple of us found out. I bought one. Joshua Dawson from Dawson Machine Works bought one. You heard we heard that Charles Wiggins bought one. And they work great. And so anyways, on the website here, if you go to products and you go to flashlight tester, here it is, and they're saying it is $399. Now, it's $399, but the ththing is, it was $350 when I bought it in the first group, and I think they might have 10 of those left. I don't know. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to talk to them. But I know that they're when they're sold out, they got 10. I think they're gonna order another lot of them, and I'm hoping after this video, people will buy them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they will. Now, does this thing come calibrated?
So it does. It comes calibrated from the factory, and so I was talking to one of the employees of the company, and she was saying that They have a large, like $20,000 integrating sphere, like the one that like AceBeam and everybody uses, and that they have a test bulb, actually, not like a flashlight, but a bulb that's calibrated, and they test it. Once they get the lumens, they put that same bulb in each one of these, and each one is individually calibrated to be the right amount.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just getting it calibrated. So the Texas Ace lumen tube from BLF, Budget Light Forum, was always a big deal because Texas Ace calibrated them, and Malka used to make calibration lights, and they had stopped. And I wanted to like make my own calibration tube, but if you can't lumen tube, but if you can't calibrate it, it's not repeatable or necessarily accurate. So to have that thing calibrated in that way, that's huge. Like, because you know it's getting real results.
It is. And when you get one of these, the most important thing you're getting it for is to have a baseline for your modding or a baseline for your modes that you're switching. What I mean to say is, if you want, it to be this bright, and then you want the next mode to be double that, this is perfect for that. But if you were then going to use it to kind of like refute the flashlight lumens that like AceBeam's putting out or Olight, I'm cautioning you. I wouldn't do that. This is still not that good. This is not a $20,000 sphere. And this is something that Zero Air and Tac Grizz and I have talked about ad nauseum, that it's good to kind of test things, and sometimes they look at reviewers like us as like industry watchdogs, and that we're like catching people out for not having a truly 100,000 lumen flashlight. And I just honestly, my belief is that none of these companies are lying about it, and that our equipment just doesn't read accurately at the high end. That's what I think.
I couldn't agree more. You know what I mean? Like, to dispute a company that's using expensive equipment like that, even if you were using expensive equipment and it was different, you're not going to get the same result. So you have to take it all with a grain of salt. I know like max lumens were a bigger deal to me when I got into the hobby. And over the last year, I don't care about them as much because there's so much variation there. Just like you said, if AceBeam's using $50,000 equipment, $20,000 equipment, and the next company's not, or they're using a different piece of equipment, like it has to be taken with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? To take 100,000 lumen light and it tests at 85,000 lumens and to call it crap or whatever, you know what I mean? To say that it's not living up to what its potential is, I think that you're selling it short in a way.
Right. So now I thought we'd switch gears and go to a product of the week. And this week, the product I'm going to review is the Weltool T12, because it's the kind of thing that I think old salt flashlight enthusiasts are going to enjoy. It's designed to be just like nails tough and have incredibly flat run times. It's like delivering on performance. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I thought this was a great product to talk about. By the way, it's got a really cool name. It's called the Weltool 9 Dragons. I love that. Danny Zhang over at Weltool, man. He comes up with the coolest names. Like, I want to buy his stuff just because of the names.
Dude, I own one Weltool, and it's a fantastic light. I think it's the T2, but it's called the Elegant Panther. I just always got a kick out of that.
So back to 9 Dragons. This thing, I'm not going to, so when I do reviews in the podcast here, I'm just trying to get in and out and just tell you what I think. This is more like my belief than going through every little thing, because I figure that, savvy consumers are going to read the website. They're going to understand that. So here's what I'm telling you. Okay, first off, this thing feels great, okay? Let me just break it down to 3 reasons that this is the light you want to get, okay? One is, this thing is built so well, and if you've never used a Weltool light, you should really take a look. Look at that. What is that? Double O-rings. Yeah, double O-rings. That's the kind of stuff Danny Zhang does. I mean, he really knows how to build a light. Secondly, with the construction, what's that? Goes all the way through. Yep, there you go. Venting holes to make this thing actually run. So this thing will actually cool actively. It reaches homeostasis, after just a couple minutes, and then it just runs forever, like at that rate. Wow. So that's number 1, how it's built. Okay. Number 2 is its runtime. Okay, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to bring over on the computer here. There we go. So I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll come over here. You can see that at 0, I measured over 2,000 lumens. At 5 seconds, you get it, and all the way down. And I did a run time like that. And then I graphed it, and what we got here is this graph right here. And you can see, let me make this a little bigger.
For 1,000 lumens.
Yeah, so what we got is it starts up around 2,000 lumens, and then within, let me go down to this one so you can see the granularity a little better. At about about just before 2 minutes, it starts to drop down, and then it hits about 1,100 lumens right around 2.5 minutes, just before. So you get about 2 minutes of around 2,000 lumens, and then look at this line. It is dead flat, and this is the long scale here. You can see it's dead flat, and then it starts to drop around 40 minutes, and right around an hour, it finally kind of goes, okay, I'm done. But that to me is amazing. This thing, you can just click it onto turbo, high, whatever you want to call it. Puts out 2,000 lumens for 2 minutes, then 1,100 for almost an hour.
Yeah, and that's really impressive for a single battery, smaller tube light like that. Not that it's a tube light, but with the bigger head. But if that's is that a 21,700 battery light?
18,650.
Is it really?
Yes.
So like I always like in like a good standard for like even a 21,700 light, if it has like a really nice driver, is maintaining 700 to 900 lumens for the duration of the battery life. So to see it over 1,000 lumens on an 18,650 for that long, that's got to be a great driver with good thermals.
Yeah. No, it's really well designed. I don't want to argue with people. I just want to tell you that I've been using it and I'm super impressed. This is like the tactical light to get if you want to blast people for a long time.
Like the standard's not that high. Like I would think 700 to 900 lumens sustained for the battery life is high. Like some ThruNite products, some AceBeam products achieve that. But to have over 1,000 lumens on an 18,650 light, that's impressive.
And then now let me go to the last reason that this is like an amazing light, I think. And that is it has 3 UIs built in. And it's really easy to switch between them. And so there's 2 reasons why this is so great. One is it has the 3 UIs, but 2 is dead simple to remember how to get between them. So this is something you could program like on the fly when you're working. So right now I've got it in, I think UI2, I'm not even sure. But if I half press, I'm on a low, and then a full click goes to the high. Okay, that's what it's on right now. Now, if I want to change that, what you do is you tap like mad on the back of the flashlight like you do with most flashlights. But here's the funny thing about it. When you tap like mad, you'll see it start to respond. And when it starts to respond, you just let go. And it'll rotate through 3 different symbols. And you do a full click on the symbol that's the one you want. Because there's 3 UIs. So let me kind of show you, okay? So I'll go like this. Now I can see that it's doing something, right? So when I let go, you'll see that it's doing a strobe deal. It's doing long flashes, doing low flashes, and then back to strobe deal. So those are the 3 different symbols. So if I want, UI1, I'll click it off in the bright flashes. If I want UI2, I will click it off in the low flashes. And then the strobe one, I just clicked it right then. So now that I clicked it in the strobe one, when we come back to the overhead view here, you'll see that a half press is a 1,000 lumen like high. It's not the 2,000, but a full click does strobe.
I like the implementation of that because I think the challenge with creating a truly unique UI or user interface with a light that only has one switch or has a mechanical switch is how do you select different modes and how do you make it so it's not painful to try to do? That seems like a nice way to do it. Visual flashes and then click. I mean, I think it's an attractive looking light. When I first saw the product pictures of it, it definitely stood out to me. But knowing that you can get that kind of output for the whole battery life, essentially, that's the kind of light that I would keep in my car, or I'd keep on the kitchen sink counter or whatever to go outside at night or look out the door. You know what I mean? That's the kind of light that, if you had to run out of the house with it, it's going to be good. It's going to be good to go.
So, just as a last thing about it, size-wise, because it is actually kind of small. Let's go to the overhead, and you can see here is the Claris tactical light. Here's the W35 that I just have sitting on hand here, and I'll go ahead and put it next to it, and you'll see that it's considerably smaller. Partly in fact that because it's got an 18650 instead of a 21700 in it, but it is a relatively small reflector. But the thing is I pit these against each other, and this one with the smaller reflector smoked this one. So driver, implementation, and the grind on that reflector, like the shape of it, really matter.
Yeah, focus is what it's all about with those reflectors.
Okay, Claris in the left hand and Weltool in the right. Let's hit this tree here. This is 20 meters. And you can see that even at 20 meters, the Weltool is out throwing. Now let's do this tree over here. The second one actually is 55 meters. And you can see that the T12 is doing much better than the Claris. Now let's go to the tree line in the back, those 4 palm trees, which are 120 meters. Sorry, 150 meters, correction. And you can see the Weltool is just doing way better.
All right, so we're in our final segment. Let's have our guest on. Let's connect with Charles Wiggins and see what he's up to. It's my great honor to welcome Charles Wiggins on the show. Charles is the owner of CW Flashlights, maker of the legendary Arcadian line, and one of my favorite flashlights in any category, which is the MicroClick. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
But first, I just want to start there before you launch into your stuff, because you've got something new in the pipeline. You've got the Quantum Chimera driver, which we want to hear all about. But I just wanted to throw this out there because this is something that I didn't know about until I witnessed it. I had, and I still do, have a bunch of Raylight Pineapple Minis, things like that. And, on paper, when you look at it, it doesn't look like that much of a different light. And there's a huge price jump, right? But it doesn't look that different from Pineapple Mini to your MicroClick. And then it's like, when you get it, you see the difference. It's a better beam, way better UI. It's all around. It's made for the aficionado for sure.
Yeah, and we do build them here in a small shop in Georgia. Everything's done pretty much in-house, as much as we can get in-house. So we're trying to keep everything local here in the U.S. and put money back here.
Well, a lot of people, that matters to them. It's a big deal where it's sourced from. I mean, it matters to me somewhat, but I'm such a snob that I'll go for the best product wherever it is. If the product comes from Japan, if it comes from Germany, whatever, it doesn't matter to me that's U.S. Is it the best? And the fact of the matter is you don't even have to sell me on the fact that it's American made, because it's just the best.
Well, it's sort of in unique shape light. When I designed the original Arcadian, I just stood at a manual lathe and cut out the original shape, and from the get-go it sort of has stuck. I really like it. It feels good in hand. Even though it does seem simple, it fits with a lot of the everyday carry that most people have in their pocket. It's not overdone in aesthetics and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's like understated, but it's perfect, right?
It's a really clean aesthetic. I don't own one, unfortunately. I do want to get one, but it has a really nice, clean look. Whether it's satin or stonewashed or blasted, I'm not sure which one that more rougher look is, but they all look really clean.
This is the stonewashed with the laser engraved. And one of the great things about the stonewashed I need to point out is that this is my daily driver. This is in my pocket all the time. I don't use any sleeves or any type of protection. And you can see that it does get snail trails, but they just you don't notice them. They just kind of blend in with the design. That's one of the things I liked about the laser engraving.
I think it looks good. I think it definitely would help hide anything that you would pick up in your pocket. I know I beat the crap out of my EDCs, so I usually go for a stonewashed light. Anything satin tie I like the look of satin more, but I can't carry it because I end up destroying it and have to refinish it. So I always opt for stonewash too. I don't have anything with lines on it like that. I don't know if it's topographic or tad look, but it definitely looks like it would hide stuff well.
And then, Charles, you were just talking about your love for zirconium.
I have a love-hate for zirconium because machining it is not a lot of fun, but when it's finished, it's probably one of the slickest, best feeling materials that I've ever held. It gives you a sort of a high dollar feel that even some of the other exotics don't. It's just the way it touches and feels in your hand compared to others, even down to the threads of the light being so much slicker. It's like screwing two pieces of glass together. So
It really is. And glass zirconium is kind of like the street name for it when you get all blackened like that under high temp.
it really is probably one of the worst ones to machine because it's when a lot of people think it's really hard, and it's not. It's even softer to machine than titanium. It's almost like trying to machine copper, but not. It's a little harder than copper, but it cuts. You really have to cut it with something that is really sharp, and you go through a lot of inserts trying to make the lights.
Oh, there you go. So the tools, you got to have them right at like their peak of life for it to cut well in that middle.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know about machining, and that's kind of me, I'm just picking it up as I talk to you guys. It turns out that that's one of the inherent costs in producing any of these lights is not just design, not R&D, not the stock itself, the metal, but the fact that you have to buy these expensive tools, and sometimes these tools are $100, and then you can make like 20 lights, and then that's it.
That's right. And some of the other materials that are even rougher, such as a Damascus steel or zirconium or mokatite, you get a lot of interference with the different layers of the material because as the insert hits it, it shatters as it's hitting each layer. So you have a lot of hand time in sanding and that kind of thing to get a lot of that roughness out that just is impossible to machine and not have, that texture in it.
Well, while we still have you, because we have limited time, I'd like to hear about this new Quantum Chimera that you teased on Facebook the other day. So, you've released the Quantum Dragon recently, which is a very tiny driver, and it makes the dimensions of the flashlight shrink a lot. So I'm excited to see and hear about this Quantum Chimera, which is going to be, what, a 10 millimeter driver?
It is a 16 millimeter driver. It will basically take the place of most boards in like AA size flashlights. But there again, it's all on one board, and you won't have any wiring involved at all.
Oh, but saying 16 millimeter, it's like where it's where the head would be.
Right, it's on top of
Yeah.
So you'll have a thermal plate that it will sit on with an isolator to isolate the positive and negative. And then this on top. There's nothing on the bottom. The battery will touch the bottom of the driver.
Right. So that reflector's got to come right down to where that emitter is, and then you get like a couple millimeters, and then the battery. So there's no wasted space for having a pill with a driver and then leads going up to an MCPCB or anything like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the design with the LED in the center and the battery contact there as well, this light will have a little bit lower lumens than most people expect me to put out. It's going to be like around 520 lumens that turn on, and it'll settle in a couple seconds to about 450 lumens. I don't really see a output difference by the eye compared to, say, 650 lumens in the micro click because the reflector is bigger and it's a little more efficient putting light out than the smaller light.
I mean, you're saying lower lumens, and I'm thinking, well, microclick's like 500-ish or something like that. So was he going to say 300? And then you said like 520. I'm like, okay.
I think that's a perfect amount of light for a small AA light like that. Like that 400 to 500 range is a really nice, because you have thermal issues if you start going too high anyway, and it's not going to sustain it. So,
right. So one of the other advantages on this is that without having to have the wiring and all involved in two separate boards, the length of the light will basically be a 14500 light will be exactly the same length as the micro click.
Hold them up. Hold them up.
They're basically exactly the same. The silver one here is aluminum. It's the only prototype going right now. It's just to get electronics in and test them real good.
But let's be really clear about this. The Stonewash one is a 10440.
This is a 10440, and this is a 14500.
Right. There you go. Because they look the same on camera, you know what I mean?
Right. This is the only difference is this is 5/8 diameter and this is 3/4 diameter.
Yeah.
And you're going to gain,
I mean,
what, three times the run time?
Right. Because the highest 10440 I've ever seen is like 340 milliamp hours, and then the 14500s, they can be like what, up to 1200 in some cases, right?
Right.
Yeah. Is it 3.7 volts only, Charles? Is it?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I don't have a problem with that. I've always, I've done the tests, and I found that, you know, in the dual fuel lights that I have, I found that if you put like a really nice on loop in there versus lithium ion, that the on loop doesn't run as long at the same given lumens, and it's just because there's just less energy in it. So I don't know why I'd ever run one.
Well, it's also in the electronics in the driver. You have to really decide which way you want to go. You can do a dual fuel driver, and I may do one at some point, but you're actually sacrificing, you know, how well it responds to which battery.
Right.
And you have to pick one or the other. You can't say, well, it's going to run optimal on this one if I do it this way and this way. It just don't work. You have to sort of pick which battery you're going to run. And I prefer on most stuff to run the 3.7 and not allow the dual fuel, because when you do that, you have to run a protected cell to keep from draining the lithium ion down too low, you know, and damage itself. So.
Right, there's no low voltage protection.
Right.
What's the PCB made out of, Charles? It looks really shiny. It looks really nice.
I'm sorry?
What's the PCB made out of on that driver? It doesn't look like a normal.
It's a copper layered with fiber, and this is just solder on the bottom before it explodes.
Oh, okay.
So that silver part on the bottom is where it grounds. It grounds to the thermal shelf, and then the battery touches the center. So this is the ground on the pill. The ground.
So it's direct. Yeah.
Yeah, it just grounds directly to the thermal shelf itself.
Nice.
Well, it was great having you on, Charles. So these new Quantum Chimera drivers are going to be coming out in a collab, or where are we going to see these?
They actually will be coming out in a collab, and I will be coming out with my own light with them in it, hopefully at Blade, Texas.
All right. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've got me sold on the fact that it's like basically the same dimensions as a light I already love, and then I'm going to get 3 times the runtime. So, I mean, I'm totally fine on that. I mean, you mentioned that the output's going to be similar, but I mean, I love the output on this guy. I have no qualms about it.
And I did actually lower the moonlight for you.
Yes, Artie and I were asking for that. We felt that the moonlight was like a little bit like a 1 to 1.5 lumens, and we wanted to see it sublumen. Apparently, Charles had listened to us, so great. Thank you, Charles.
Very excited. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, and I hope to have you in the future.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, Charles.
Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.